So moms and dads, family members, scouts, supporters, I want you to know I am genuinely touched today. You are beautiful to me. Each and every one of you are beautiful to me. I want to thank you for being here because you give me hope in this world. Sometimes hope is not seen as a commodity, but it is a commodity, and you give me hope. I want to thank you for doing all the work that you did that got you into this room today, on this day, at this hour, at this particular time in the world's history. And I want to let you know the world needs each and every one of you. And don't you forget it. You might think, I don't know what I'm going to do past my Eagle Scout Award, past this day, what I'm going to do for a career, how I'll serve in this world. But I want to tell you there is a particular brand of magic in each and every one of you. And you came here to this world to do that, and you will. And it's not just for you, it's because the world needs you badly. I want to invite you all to do something that I think you'll probably think is a little weird right off the top. It might be a little strange to you, but I need you to trust me as a fellow Eagle Scout because I am going somewhere with this, okay? You ready? I want you all to close your eyes. You're safe. Close your eyes. I want you to place your right hand over your heart and take a deep in-breath. Exhale. Keep your eyes closed. Now on an inhale, place your left hand over the top of your right hand. Inhale and exhale. Stay there with your eyes closed. And I want you to think back to that last glance you took in the mirror today before you took your seat. Scouts, chances are you checked your hair, you glanced at your uniform to make sure everything was in place, just how you wanted to wear it. But chances are you didn't look at the most important thing in that reflection. So with your eyes closed, I want you to look one more time in the last mirror you ever looked in. And I want you to look directly into that scout's eyes. And if you're a supporter in the room and you're not a scout, just go back to the last mirror you looked into as well, because this applies to you as well. I want you to look into those eyes, and I want you to look at the person earnestly who is staring back at you. Who is she? Who is he? And why did he or she come to the planet at this particular point in history? What's your purpose? What's your mission? And do you trust that person that is looking back at you in the eyes to get you and this world to where we are all going? Do you trust that person? Open your eyes now. I want you to look into my eyes. And I want you to know, in all sincerity, I trust you. I trust each and every one of you to go to where you are going to get this world to a better place. I trust you to be kind, to make the world more kind. I trust you to be gentle, to make the world more gentle. I trust you to be brave, and I trust you to be good. And I trust that you'll withhold judgment for me while I tell you a little bit of a story about my scouting journey. I was not a good scout, not at first anyway. 250 years ago, maybe 249 and a half years ago when I was a scout, there was a thing called heavy metal music. How many of you remember heavy metal music in this room? Yes? Okay. So you know, if you remember heavy metal music, it was big hair, torn jeans, eyeliner, bad attitudes, we had tough stares, loud cars, loud music, and I was so into it. It was sort of like this shield I put up. And some of you heard in the introduction in the program that my Troop 248 motto when we went to Timberline Camp and we did those troop calls was borrowed lyrics from a music group that was called Rat. I don't know how many of you remember that heavy metal group. I see a couple of smiles out there. But yes, it was a musical group that was fashioned after and modeled after and branded after a rodent. And that was my shield. That was my way of saying, I don't like this place. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't get why I'm serving. And it was my not so subtle protest to all the rules that scouting gave, the overnight and sometimes frigid Utah camping scenes when we slept in tents. It was my sort of way of thumbing my nose at the teamwork that we were assigned. And so my way of doing that and just sort of stating a bad attitude was every morning at Camp Timberline was to march our troop out to those morning ceremonies at camp. And in that unison, we would lead ourselves in that troop motto, out of the cellar and into the sun, we are the Rat Patrol and we're number one. And I remember my scout leaders just horrified, like, why would these kids name their troop after a rat? But we were the bad boys in the camp. And it didn't serve me at all to close myself off to what scouting had to offer me. But the truth was, I didn't want to be there. I didn't understand why my dad, Russell, and my grandpa, Wes, who I idolized and adored, cheered my involvement in this organization that taught us these skills that just I didn't think mattered, really. Like dropping little iodine tablets in water to make it so it was pure to drink right out of the stream, or maybe how to use steel wool to spark a fire up in the high Uintas, how to tie knots. I often would go with a bad attitude and I would think, what is the point of all of this? I just didn't get it. But I kept at it because, my grandpa Wes loved the outdoors, and he loved being a sportsman, and he loved seeing me, his grandson, go to a place where he would go to recharge and find refuge and peace after long days building homes in rural Utah with his bare hands to get money, scrap enough money together to take care of a critically ill daughter and feed a family, put clothes on their backs in their 1940s and 1950s life that they lived. I brought some of those things with me today. And these are his glasses. This is his Marine Band harmonica. And I have to tell you, I wanted to please my grandpa because I loved him so much. I idolized him. In fact, from the earliest time that I can remember, he would make me stand, and sometimes to my great embarrassment. And, I started out with dad jokes. He was the ultimate dad joke guy. And he would make me recite this poem in front of family members or his friends up at the coffee shop. My name is Darren Reed Cowan. I live out in the West, where the rattlesnakes do rattle and the cuckoo builds his nest. And they would applaud, and they thought that was the greatest thing ever. And I just thought, what's a cuckoo? He was my fishing buddy, and he would put me in his green and white GMC truck, and off we would go. We'd go up to the high Uintas, and we would find rivers and streams where we would eat sack lunches that were packed by my grandma Fernie. And I remember before we got clear up there, we'd find the very last store before the wild took over, and we would stop and we would buy strawberry soda from a woman with these beautiful long black braids. She'd sell us that soda on land that was occupied proudly by the Northern Ute tribe of the White River or Uncompahgre bands of indigenous people, where they lived on the land that their families had been driven to. I have to tell you, I grew up with them as my brothers and my sisters. We saw them as family because my grandpa served them building tribal housing out there in a place called Fort Duchesne. And on those fishing days, we would exhaust ourselves finding the perfect place to drop our line, and always on the drive home, I would be so tired and sometimes sunburnt. Our catch would be in the back of the truck, and I remember fading and starting to fall asleep on my tough grandpa's lap, and I would feel his rough hands from working so hard, and he would sing these old cowboy tunes to me. And he would customize them just for me. When it's springtime in the Rockies, I would hear him sing, I'll be coming home to you. Little sweet man of the mountains with your eyes of blue. Or I remember this song, Red River Valley. It's an old-timer song. From this valley they say you are going. I will miss your bright eyes and sweet smile. But remember our Red River Valley and the grandpa who loved you a while. I was a good grandson, but I wasn't a good scout, just like my grandpa wanted me to be. I want you to remember something, scouts, because you're young, and sometimes outside of these doors and these arenas, life can be unkind, and difficulties come, and they will come. Sometimes hard things happen in our lives to test us and to cause us to gather up and use those skills that we picked up on ordinary scouting days when we thought there was no value in the learning, to help us to be good, to be better, and maybe to survive hard things. Well, you remember that Camp Timberline that I told you about, where I marched our troop out and we defiantly called out the Rat Patrol. At the end of that camp week, my parents came to pick me up, and they drove 2 hours to get me, and I thought that was strange that they actually came personally to get us, because typically we would ride back with our scoutmasters, right? I got in my car with my parents and my friend Cameron, and my mom turned and said, we came to get you because your grandpa is very sick, and they think he has cancer. I remember looking over at my friend Cameron next to me and thinking, don't show any emotion, don't show any emotion, be tough. But it was no use. That well of emotion just broke inside of me from my best friend, my singing, fishing line throwing Grandpa Wes, and I broke into a million pieces and sobbed all the way home. This was for me one of those hard things in life, and it would be one of my first tests to see if anything I learned in scouting could perhaps be used and gathered up and shore up my days as I spent the days preparing to say goodbye to the grandpa I idolized. It seemed so unfair. He was 69 years old. He had arms like rocks from wielding ceiling beams and roof trusses to build houses. And yet over the remaining summer months and into fall, that illness took him in pieces until the last time I saw him lying in a rural Utah hospital bed. I remember he looked up at me and he looked like a little boy under the blankets. And he said to me, I'm going to try a little longer, little man. And those were the last words I ever heard Wesley Jensen say to me. He did try hard for a little while longer, but the illness won out. And so my best friend and my fishing and my singing buddy who would put these glasses on the brim of his nose and tell silly dad jokes was gone from our family before Thanksgiving. And I remember standing at his funeral, trying to make sense of it all. I was just like you, fresh from a scouting uniform the Friday before. And I remember thinking about the skills I had learned in scouting, and they started to swirl in me, maybe taking root in my heart. And they started to transform me from that bad scout to a pretty good scout. And I remembered words that suddenly had meaning and traction because my life gave me an experience to apply to those words. On my honor, I will do my best. Maybe I could get my Eagle Scout Award. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, and helpful. Maybe I could trust myself to set goals, to be loyal to what my grandpa stood for. Maybe to help people like he helped our Indigenous brothers and sisters there in Fort Duchesne. A scout is friendly, courteous, kind, and brave. Maybe I can be friends with my grandpa in a whole new way. Maybe in a new project, in new ways. Maybe him in spirit with me somehow, and I'll be working hard right here on earth. And maybe he can be there and I can be kind to his memory. Maybe I can be brave. Maybe brave enough to do my best, to do my duty, and finish what it took to get my Eagle Scout Award because of James Wesley Jensen, my grandpa. You see that really is what I'm here to tell you, that ordinary things you've done leading up to this day in those scout meetings, putting together a grill 40 minutes away, 40 miles away from your home, the little things you quote, the things in the scouting handbook, those things that you recite over and over, somehow they are going to stick in your mind and your heart, and you'll never be the same. And they did for me. They pointed me like the order of the arrow straight to the day when I would get my Eagle Scout for my Grandpa Wes, just like you did today. And I did it. I was told I was one of the youngest recipients of the Eagle Scout Award in the history of our community. But I did what minds do, and you're going to confront this in your young lives as well. I started to drift from some of those scouting values. I started wondering if what I'd accomplished really mattered to anyone, was really important. And I really kind of wondered if it mattered to my grandpa at all, or if it's just in my head. Did he know? Did he see my court of honor? Maybe some of you sitting here today wonder if somebody who's not in this room sees or is aware of the good you've done in your life. I know I carried those questions hurting often through the halls of Roosevelt Junior High School, where I remember on hard days thinking silently, just give me a sign. Just show me somehow that you know I did good. And on one particularly hard day of questions, I heard my name over the speaker at the school in the hall of Roosevelt Junior High coming to the principal's office, and I thought, uh-oh, bad boy, bad scout, what have I done? But the principal handed me this. It's a letter from an American president delivered by certified mail to our junior high school and into my hands. Congratulations on attaining the rank of Eagle Scout. Your hard work and diligence have earned you this high award, which is a symbol of your dedication to the principles of the Boy Scouts of America. You have my best wishes for continued success. Ronald Reagan. The principles of the Scouts in that letter from an American president sent out from the White House in Washington, D.C. and found its way by certified mail somehow to little Roosevelt Junior High. I carried it in the halls of our high school. And I really believed in that moment it was my grandpa's way of saying, "Good job, boy." You know, that's been decades ago, but as you can probably hear in my voice, it's still really fresh for me, and those feelings have come back in a very real way. And I'm not going to lie to you today, as I grew and confronted some of the issues that scouting has confronted, I became more of who I came to this earth to be. And there was a time when I thought scouts and scouting had no home for me. I didn't feel like scouting had a place for me anymore, and so I didn't allow a place for scouting in my heart. And I'm ashamed to say, I remember well that day when I opened the case that contained all of my merit badges, all of my scouting medals, all of the trophies and awards, and I said to my grandpa, "I am so sorry, but this was never a part of me." And I opened a big trash bin and I threw it away. And I threw everything away except for this letter that came as a sign from my grandpa from Ronald Reagan that day. So today's a big day for me. I have you all to thank, and my very special and kind boss, Scott Warren, for making me feel like maybe I have a place in scouting and scouting's great legacy after all. You know, I've done many reports live the last couple of years from food banks, and I have felt all of your warmth and your goodness and your inclusive growth as an organization. And in that, I have felt every time the stir of emotions that come when we serve the world through scouting. And I want to thank you for that. It's been the healing of old wounds for me. And when my boss, Scott Warren, who's our general manager at KPIX in San Francisco, asked me to be a part of this evening along with your leaders, I revisited the membership policy of the Scouts, and I cried because it felt like a safe and warm homecoming. In part, here are these words. It is the scouting philosophy to welcome all eligible youth, regardless of race, ethnic background, gender, or orientation. Prejudice and intolerance are unacceptable within the ranks of Scouts. Scouting will continue to focus on reaching and serving youth to help them grow into good, strong citizens. The statement goes on to say, by focusing on the goals that unite us, we are able to accomplish incredible things for young people and the communities we serve. Close quote, and you are every bit of that incredible. So if you feel comfortable, close your eyes one more time and try this again with me. Put your hands back over your hearts. And I want you to go back to that last mirror you looked in before you took your seat today. I want you to look right into those eyes, and I want you to trust the person looking back at you. I want you to trust that what you've learned while earning these honors will carry you through the situations you confront in your life. I want you to trust that you are good scouts and good supporters of Scouts. And I want you to trust that you'll never be the same after today. I want you to trust that the things you have learned in your service will make the world a better place. The world needs you. You can open your eyes again. The world needs you. And so I ask you to not do what I did, which is forget the scouting values and never let this day leave you, and know that scouting is a part of who you are forever, and that you have a home in scouting, even after you take off the uniform and take the badges off and put them in a drawer. You know that they're there someday. It's sort of a homing beacon for you. Find somebody to love. Find somebody to serve. Listen to that still small voice as you go about your day. And when that little voice whispers to you to stop, to help somebody, you stop and you help somebody, because you are a scout. When that voice says to get up and leave a negative conversation or environment, you get up and you leave, because you are a scout. When that voice says that division over politics or rhetoric of any kind put more value on being right over being kind and good, you remember that the person next to you needs you to build a bridge, a skill you learned by being a scout, and you build that bridge. I'm so thankful to be with you here today. I'm thankful that you've been a part of healing a wound, a long wound that I've carried for decades because I didn't think I had a home in scouting. And what you have done today has been magnanimous in my life. And I know it's going to be magnanimous in the lives of so many people. Please know the world needs you, and you can trust yourselves because you're a scout. Thank you. Thank you so much.